Thank you for joining. My name is Adam Gates. I'm a senior sales engineer for Malwarebytes. Today we'll be talking about the Cybercrime Tactics and Techniques report for Q2, Attack on Home Base. Please ask any questions throughout the presentation. Nothing's off limits, but let's try to keep it to the content that we're discussing today. Malwarebytes is a cybersecurity company focused on endpoint security and remediation. We started in the consumer space and have moved into the enterprise. Malwarebytes has millions of endpoints around the world. What's very unique about Malwarebytes is we see about 500,000 downloads of our free tool every single day. The Cybercrime Tactics and Techniques report is a distillation of the telemetry we get from those endpoints around the world. Here we can see a heat map of real-time detections occurring: pups, pums, Trojans, ransomware. Those 500,000 downloads, along with millions of other endpoints sending telemetry to our service, give us a tremendous current view of what's happening in the wild. We can see down to the hour, the day, the week, the types of changes we're seeing in the front lines at endpoint detection around the world. The Cybercrime Tactics and Techniques report is our Malwarebytes Labs team's distillation of that data and their views on what we see happening in the world. If we take a glance at the detections of just recently, some things to call out, and you'll see this matches up with much of our presentation today. There is a huge change in the way the attackers are going after your users, and a huge change in user behavior as they've moved from the office to working from home because of COVID. We can see things like HackTool KMS, Riskware KMS. These are actually key software that users are installing in order to get Windows working, to get Office, Adobe, other software. And it makes a lot of sense when we think of users trying to set up their home environments, trying to set up their children's laptops for homeschooling. We can also see spyware InfoStealer has moved massively up the list. And this is consistent with what we're seeing on the attack side, where the attackers are now more focused on stealing password login information in order to get access to corporate resources. And then we're seeing them do that from the consumer side. Now this CTNT report is one of many. We come out with a report every quarter. Some of the past topics we brought up in the past have been Emotet, the triple threat of TrickBot, Ryuk, and Emotet together, a healthcare focus, ransomware families, and the development we've seen there. We've also done a set of surveys where we've dived into how privacy is being handled in the workplace and at home, and also a new privacy report coming out on how people are dealing with the switch from working at home, both from a security point of view and users themselves. So a little bit about me. I've been with Malwarebytes a little over 2 years. I've been in technology for over 20. The second day I was working at Microsoft was the day the I Love You virus came out. And it's interesting that a lot of the malware and the threats and the Trojans we're dealing with today are really just evolutions of that same type of attack. We've got an exploit that Microsoft creates. We've got a package that makes people interested and want to click on it. A message like I love you tends to get people to raise an eyebrow. Now we're seeing that same type of attack, a phishing email, a website, except it deals with information about COVID or healthcare or schooling. And that's causing users to open links, open packages, install software that they should not. Now, obviously, the co-host today is, and I'm sure of all the presentations you're seeing, is COVID. At the core of COVID is uncertainty and fear for your users, where your users are used to going to work, working in the office, now their whole lives and put it up and turned over. They're now working from home, many people for the first time, unsure of how to get set up, how to get support, when they get emails, when they get phone calls, when they get go to websites that tell them they need to take actions. We're seeing the attackers use this type of fear and uncertainty to make users implement malicious code. So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss the results of the CNT report. It's a little dry, some of the things we'll talk about. I'll try to liven up as much as possible, but these are real changes we've seen out in the field that are affecting users that really show a change in how attackers are going after user groups. We'll look at some specific rats and Trojans we're seeing in the wild. Then we'll look at how the attackers have transitioned themselves from the world of working from home and COVID. And then we'll look at some specific attacks and scams that we're seeing that are leveraging COVID out there in the wild. Some key takeaways I hope we get from this is to understand how the attackers are dusting off old tools and reusing them again against your users at home. How quickly the attackers pivoted to using phishing and fraud attacks that utilize coronavirus as their underlying attack vector. And then showing how the attackers have really changed from thinking of consumer and business users as different, targeting the enterprise with different types of attacks, and have effectively moved back to the home and are attacking the users at home in order to get access to corporate resources. Now, first, let's lay the land of a way it was done before. Before COVID, users would go to the office. Attackers, we see, were very different, had very different attack focuses. For the corporate networks, we would see Trojans, ransomware, backdoors as being the main methods of attack. Spear phishing attacks being used as the entry point for the corporate network. In the home environment, we would see a very different sort of attack. Lots of adware, lots of pups and pums, riskware, trying to get the users to go to malicious websites, get search results, and also more recently, rise in crypto miners, where they're using users' home machines in order to mine Bitcoin. Now, as users have moved from work to home because of COVID, there's been some changes in the way the attackers are dealing with this change. The users are no longer in that corporate network to click on those phishing links, to install those Trojans and backdoors, to run that ransomware on accident. So the attackers have moved their attack. We see the attackers are now going after the users at home. The logic here is that the users are using VPN to connect back to the corporate network. They're utilizing cloud services to continue to work day to day. The attackers know this, and so they've started to refocus their efforts on the consumer space and those users at home. Phishing attacks, rats, Trojans, information stealers, tricking the users to click on malicious links, to click on malicious websites, and effectively make them the bridge that they're going to use to attack your environment. So now we're going to go into some specific different attacks that we're seeing out there in the wild. So we think of the telemetry data, the millions and millions of endpoints every day, the billions of data points we see. What we're going to look at now is a very narrow laser focus on some specific rats, Trojans, and backdoors, and what we're seeing out there in the wild. You're going to see a really consistent set of traits across these different attacks. What you're going to see is there's no brand new attacks. These are all dusted off old attacks that the attackers have had and have been known for some time. What's really different is they're tying them very aggressively to coronavirus and COVID websites and emails, trying to get the users to click with their fear and uncertainty and effectively infect those machines. Eva Maria is one of the first ones we're looking at. We saw Eva Maria has been around for some time. We've seen a huge jump in campaigns using coronavirus. This particular one talking about medical supplies, about 110% increase just between February and March of this particular attack. Eva Maria is interesting in that it's a malware as a service where you can pay a monthly fee and get access to this constantly updated exploit kit. NetWiredRC. NetWiredRC is originally an energy industry focused attack created by an Iranian APT. It's been expanded out and we're now seeing it in other locations. This is another remote access tool, keylogger. It can be used as a downloader. We're seeing it being packaged with UNICEF COVID emails, effectively trying to quench that user's need to have more information about what's happening with COVID at all times. LokiBot. LokiBot is a well-known botnet. It's been around for quite some time. Focuses on key logging, password stealing. And what you'll see here is a consistent trait across all of these attacks, where the attackers are much more interested in stealing the credentials and getting access to use these machines as a stepping off point to get access to other systems. LokiBot has also been used in COVID-themed phishing campaigns, and we've seen a huge increase in the amount of LokiBot just recently. AOZ Rolt is a dangerous information stealing malware. It's been around since 2016. It includes a downloader, so it can be used as a way to install other types of attacks. We've seen phishing campaigns being utilized with this particular attack that are COVID themed. Really, it's quite interesting to see how quickly the attackers could pivot it over to this type of phishing scam. And we'll look at some of the numbers and what we're seeing for phishing registered domains. The hackers wasted no time in switching to this type of approach. DanaBot, originally a banking Trojan with a focus on Australia. We've actually seen it expand into Europe and North America recently. It has multiple capabilities, can manipulate browsers, steal passwords, download other software. And we've seen this one, most interestingly, being tied to fake Johns Hopkins websites, where the users would be directed to a page they would think is the Johns Hopkins website for coronavirus COVID tracking, but would in fact install malware and exploit kits on their machines if they visited this page. Now, while we've been massively affected by the transition from work to home, dealing with the cut down in travel, kids in the house having to do school, the cyber criminals wasted no time. As soon as COVID rose its head and lockdowns came in place, what we'll see is the hackers wasted no time. A couple things: RDP attack, brute force attacks have seen a tremendous increase. A couple new and old pieces of ransomware have been repackaged and resent out. Thanos, Lucifer, they're TrickBot modified to make it more stealthy. So we're seeing some of the older tools being dusted off, modified slightly. QBot has evolved and is now being used to hijack legitimate email threads, where a man-in-the-middle type of attack will be used to essentially grab an email thread and take it over. You don't have to look very far to see the attackers have been having a lot of success. Hospitals, denial of service attacks, well in the news with Tesla recently. There's been a huge increase in the focus on government agencies, on disrupting hospitals. The World Health Organization and Johns Hopkins websites were attacked also. The attackers have been using this as an opportunity to spread their tools. There's a couple of really interesting ways that they've been going about it. They've been having, they pivoted very quickly to changing their phishing campaigns to utilize COVID and coronavirus type of attacks. We also saw the creation of Black Friday type sales around COVID for hacking toolkits, along with the attackers creating a fake coronavirus specials for MacBooks and other types of deals for end users to get tricked as they're trying to adjust to working at home. The hackers immediately registered an incredible amount of domains related to coronavirus, COVID, and they've been using those as the stepping stone for these phishing attacks ever since. And in preparation for the boom around attacks using COVID, the attackers have been offering, the attack tool providers have been offering discounts and of their packaged toolkits that can effectively bypass Windows and utilize the most current exploits in order to get control of machines. Here we can see some other references to COVID Black Friday codes, where effectively hacked Facebook accounts on the dark web are being sold with a special COVID rate. Also, we see products and services being offered that are trying to take advantage of the users, trying to get working from home. In this case, we see a MacBook being sold for an incredibly low price. This is in fact a scam and fake, and it kind of goes to the old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So here we'll look at some of the other COVID-19 scams and threats that we see out there. Obviously, very publicly, we saw the Twitter Bitcoin breach that happened with some very famous, widely distributed Bill Gates and others, offering money. It was reported in the news that well over $300,000 was sent to this Bitcoin address in order to take advantage of Bill Gates giving away his money. If it's too good to be true, people, it probably is. World Health Organization emails, where we effectively see people, the attackers, claiming to have information about coronavirus, claiming to have vaccine information, immunity information, effectively trying to get the users to open a package, open an executable, and infect their machines. Here we can see a couple different examples of what that looks like and how the users might be tricked. A closer look at the Johns Hopkins exploit, where we can see the attackers utilizing a well-known trusted site like Johns Hopkins, spoofing it and trying to convince the users to enable different web portions of the website to make it fully function, when in fact it would install a Trojan on the machines. A variant of Azure Alt was seen, along with spyware and other Trojan packages. It doesn't stop there. The attackers taking advantage of people's confusion during this wild time, created a Corona antivirus, effectively an application you can install on your machine to protect you from coronavirus. This is, of course, not going to protect you. It is, in fact, a remote access toolkit that'll give an attacker access to your machine and make you susceptible to other types of malware. Stealing passwords, running Bitcoin miners, keyloggers, and being used as a component in denial of service attacks. We can also see Corona back office, very similar, effectively trying to fool the users into thinking that they're buying some sort of tool or capability to protect themselves or track Corona in some sort of way. It is in fact malware that's being installed. Now, what can we do for the users? If we take a step back and think about the data, think about what we've seen, the telemetry that we've collected across the millions of endpoints has told us, shown us a couple things that are obvious and some things that aren't quite so obvious. First, obviously the users have moved from working from the office into their home environment, utilizing VPNs at their home networks. Those users don't have the same type of protections that they do in the office. Firewalls, security teams, and most importantly, they don't have that social network that they have in the office, where when they get that phishing email, when they come across that strange website, when they get that email that's very convincing that they need to open up that attachment, in the office, they can turn to the person they work with. They can say, does this look right to you? Have you seen this email? And that is a huge protection for the front line of phishing attacks and attachments that install malware. Now, because your users are on VPNs, they effectively can get on your network. The attackers know this, and they're going after those. We need to make sure we have security software in place on those home environments like we would within the office. And of course, misinformation is everywhere. Don't go chasing waterfalls as effectively. If it's too good to be true, it most likely probably is. Now, for your users themselves, some things that we can recommend. Obviously, passwords become more important. Multi-factor authentication becomes much more important. With the huge increase in information stealers we're seeing out there, we recommend using password tools like 1Pass or others, so the user doesn't have to put in the password over and over again, and it can't be stolen easily. Also, going a step further, where instead of typing in your credit card information, we recommend you using a wallet service, something like PayPal, Amazon Pay. That way there's a wall between the user themselves and putting in this information. In conclusion, the attackers are extremely flexible. The speed at which they change their phishing campaigns to take advantage of COVID, coronavirus, the fear out there, the speed at which they got websites up for Johns Hopkins and other websites trying to utilize users' trust of those types of well-known names, the World Health Organization and others. We can see quickly why it's so easy for the attackers to take advantage of our users who are at home without any of the normal support that they have in the office. What's interesting too is that we're seeing the attacks that they're using aren't new. They're taking old remote access toolkits and Trojans, repackaging them, and then sending those back out. So these are very stoppable type of attacks with the right types of tools in place. For the more sophisticated APTs, we haven't seen a change in their behavior. We still see the same types of attacks on the corporate networks, Trojans, ransomware, backdoors. Those more sophisticated actors haven't changed their pre-COVID to their pre-COVID operations just yet. Again, thank you. Any questions, please absolutely let us know. My email is at agates@malwarebytes.com. So if you have any questions about any material, please reach out to me. Happy to answer. We'll also be at the virtual booth. So if you want to ask any questions there or have any comments, we're happy to talk to you. Thank you very much.